Hello. Big book summer. Welcome to Web of Stories. My name is Melinda. I am here with my weekly wrap up. It is summer has hit the Pacific Northwest. We are actually going to be heading into a heat wave soon, which will be a thing that happens. This is like too high. I am never ready with this. I don't know what my problem is. Okay, let's see if that helps at all. Anyway, yes. So I am over here at my house, just reading. So far behind in comments. I am so sorry. I mentioned this. It was my book haul revisit video. Like, all of a sudden, YouTube quit emailing me notifications of comments. So I have all these comments I didn't know about. So I'm slowly catching up with them. And I'm sorry it's taking so long. I need to be better about that. Also, last week was busy with the 4th of July and stuff, so I didn't have as much time to like really go through comments, but I'm gonna get caught up on them. Yes, so this is mid-month book bash. So I am working on a vlog, which you will see next Thursday. I will not be having a mid-month book bash next month, a mid-month book bash vlog next month for reasons that will become clear. I'll do something else. In September, this is interesting. In September, I will be back with a mid-month book bash vlog. And it will be interesting because during mid-month book bash, my church is doing this fundraiser, craft fair, everything. And I am going to be holding a used book sale for the church. So I will be spending my Saturday of mid-month book bash September selling books, many of which are mine, at the church. So if you're in the area and you want to buy some books for $1 each, come on by, but more info to come on that. So yeah, that's what's going on here. Knee still hurts, jaw still hurts. I wonder if I can put it up here. This meme I saw that was just so perfect. I was like, I've never felt more seen than this. I'll try and put it up there. Anyway, this past week I finished 3 books. And now I'm crooked again. Like I hit apparently the table just right, and now I'm crooked. So I have an audiobook, an ebook, and a print book. The audiobook, let's start with that. This is The Sinners All Bow, 2 authors, 1 murder, and the real Hester Prynne by Kate Winkler Dawson. I got this out of the library based just on the title, because if you don't know, I love the Scarlet Letter. I am the weirdo who loves the Scarlet Letter, and I couldn't pass this up. Kate Winkler Dawson, I did not know, but now I know, is a true crime podcaster, true crime investigator thing. And this looks at a murder in, you know what? Hold on one second. I forgot to pull this up. Okay, I'm back. I wanted to pull up the synopsis because I want to make sure I get the names, because this is a true story, the names and the dates straight. So this is actually investigating a murder that took place in 1832 in Fall River, Rhode Island, as opposed to Fall River, Massachusetts. I guess at the time there was like one in each state, or maybe there still is, I don't know. But anyway, so back in 1832, a woman was found hanging from a pole in a barn. Oh, she was in a barn. I thought she was out by a tree, but anyway. And it became this sort of big crime scene. And an author named Catherine Williams. So let me go back. I'm listening to this, as I said, I didn't know much going into it. I just really like the title. And Catherine, I'm listening to the author's note or the introduction at the beginning, and Catherine Winkler Dawson is talking about her co-writer. And then she starts saying things, but I got really frustrated with my co-writer because she refused to interview these people, and I just didn't think I could trust her. And I'm like, this is really weird. This is weird, right? That she doesn't trust her co-writer. What? So I'm listening to figure out what's going on. And then she says, oh, but the difference is my co-writer wrote a book 200 years ago. So this co-writer, Catherine Reed Williams, wrote what she's considering, although I don't know if it's actually considered, but she, Dawson, is considering the first true crime book. It was about this murder. And Sarah Cornell was found hanging. They found out that she was pregnant, and it was believed that she was murdered by a Methodist minister, because apparently Methodists were the wild group back then. But so this goes through that whole crime, and she does, Dawson does really look at the information that she has available, which was actually quite a lot. I was really surprised at sort of the information that Dawson herself could pull up, because they had all the court records as to go to trial. She also tracked down like descendants of the minister who, like, they found this out. They had feelings about it. I mean, present day, and we're talking 200 years, almost 200 years, 190 something years, right? So I was really impressed with that. And she goes through the whole thing. So I'm really torn. This, when I do my monthly wrap up, this falls into the up in the air category. I did give it 3 stars because I had real problems with it, but I also was like totally sucked into it. It's very clear, like going into this, I thought it would be like a literary history sort of thing. No, this is true crime. This is a true crime novel. Kate Winkler Dawson, as I said, is a true crime podcaster. This feels like a true crime podcast. She does consult modern experts. Her like co-host is one of the experts. She co-hosts on her podcast is one of the experts. She consults like in the present day, how would you handle this sort of thing? Took me a little while to get used to that, but once I accepted that this was true crime, this wasn't it wasn't a literary history, it was a true crime, I was fine with that. What she did do that really bugged me, one of the things she did that really bugged me, was she kept like referring to modern day crimes, like all of a sudden, oh, the Golden State Killer, or oh, the Manson family, or whoever. I don't think she ever did Ted Bundy because there was no cannibalism involved here, but modern day. And like, I was okay with her referencing like the experts, but every time she went to a modern day crime, it like pulled me right out of the story. And I was so irritated by that. And then her argument, so she's looking at the crime. She's also looking at how Catherine Williams wrote it. And Catherine Williams herself was a really interesting character. Her book called Fall, I think it's called Fall River. I looked on Serial to see if it's available. It's not, but I bet I could get it through Project Gutenberg, and I would be interested in reading it. But like, she went through Catherine Williams' life and where she was coming from, and how did she report on this? Was she doing a good job with it? Whatever. That was all interesting. But then there's the whole Hester Prynne part. Obviously, there are some parallels here. Hester Prynne was, spoiler if you've never read Hester Prynne, but literally you figure this out in like the first chapter. Hester Prynne has been knocked up by the minister. And so that's all very similar. And this happened like right before the time that Nathaniel Hawthorne would have been writing The Scarlet Letter, and Catherine Williams' book came out before that. So, and this was big news. So in New England. So Nathaniel Hawthorne would have been aware of it, all this. And I am willing to give her that there's some influence. Like I can accept that there may have been some influence of this crime on Nathaniel Hawthorne when he wrote this book. However, her argument seemed to be that his entire book was about telling this crime, and that's not true. I felt like she was working off the cliff notes of The Scarlet Letter, because that's not at all true. If you know anything about The Scarlet Letter and Nathaniel Hawthorne, probably the big impetus for him to write it was kind of working through his own sort of generational guilt over the Salem witch trials, because he was descended from like the judge that like never accepted that they did a wrong thing. So there were a lot of things going into The Scarlet Letter, and that was probably the biggest one. I can accept that maybe he heard about this crime. He's like, oh, hey, that's interesting. I could use that as an idea. She gave this crime and this story, I think, way too much weight when it came to Nathaniel Hawthorne. And as someone, and The Scarlet Letter, and as someone who rereads The Scarlet Letter every couple of years since I've been in high school, so for a very long time, and who loved it in high school and just loves this book and knows about it, knows, all the stuff going on around all that really irritated me. I was like, you could have done some more research on that. Like, if you're going to make that argument, she clearly can research, because, going through this murder and, looking at it in different ways and all this, she did a lot of research. Fabulous. And then she comes to this other point where she just like clearly did not do her research at all, just to make an argument. And it really bugged me. So I don't know what to think about this. I don't know if I'd recommend it or not. I don't know. It's The Sinners All Bow, or as I call, no, The Sinners All Bow, is that right? Yes, The Sinners All Bow, not All the Sinners Bow, because like I was mixing it up with the S.A. Cosby book, which I still haven't read. But anyway, The Sinners All Bow, 2 authors, 1 murder, and the real Hester Prynne. I don't know what I thought of it. There you go. It at least sucked me in, but it also made me mad. Editing Melinda here. I'm watching what I said about The Sinners All Bow, and I forgot something that was really important. It's about the audiobook itself. So I listened to the audiobook, and my first little sign that something was not quite right was when Kate Winkler Dawson, who narrates it as well, said that the mill owners protected the girls from immortality. Huh? So I'm back and listened to it again. That's what they said. I don't know if that's what's printed in the book, because I had the audiobook, but clearly she meant immorality. And while there is only a letter difference between the two, those are very different words. There were other instances where you could tell they meant to edit something out, so they would say something, stop, and then say it again. And that happens a lot in podcasts, and it doesn't bother me in podcasts, even podcasts that come from studios that are like, have an editing team. It doesn't really bother me. But in an audiobook, it does. And I was just like, this is probably the sloppiest audiobook I've ever heard. So just something to think about with that. Okay, the second book I finished is for my library book club, which will be meeting on the day that this video drops on Saturday. So we haven't had that discussion yet, but I feel okay talking to you all about this book because I also don't know what I feel about this book. This book is 10 minutes, 38 seconds in This Strange World by Elif Shafak. I have never read Elif Shafak before. This is my first book by her. So the title comes from this theory, I guess, medical theory. I don't know if it's considered fact or theory, whatever, but that after someone dies, their consciousness in their body is still active from anywhere from 2 minutes to 10 minutes and 38 seconds. So that's where you get the title. And we open with a woman has been killed. She's in a dumpster. And it's the moment of her death. So we start the countdown. Count up, I guess, 10 minutes and 38 seconds. So that first half of the book is the sort of like, you know, your life flashes before your eyes and we see different points in her life. And that was effective. I mean, it was interesting and it was effective. It was sad because you knew that she was dead, because that was the whole thing. You knew this like death was coming, and the way that she died was just heartbreaking. And so it was, and she had the kind of life where she just had a hard life. And so that was all really sad. Okay. Halfway through the book, you hit 10 minutes and 38 seconds. So then we switch over to, she has 5 friends, and 5 really close friends, and we're introduced to them in that first part of the book. But the second part is the 5 friends reacting to her death and what they do about it. And there's this very weird tonal change between the two. There were times, I mean, there's definitely sadness because her friends are very heartbroken. Her friends are all sort of like outcasts, as she was. They're very heartbroken about her death, and they can't get her body for, legal reasons and this whole thing. It's very sad. But there's also this weird madcappy element, which becomes obvious as you read it, which I thought really it was weird. I don't want to say it didn't fit because I don't know. It sat kind of weird with me. I don't know if I'd recommend this or not. I should also say, I said this in my mid-month book bash video, which you have not seen yet. I have been on novels, just novels, that are not 5-star, which means they're in my soul. 2 stars or 1 stars, which I can identify those really easily. So when they land in that 3-4 star area, I have started, and this is the first one I started doing it with, using the Copile system to kind of figure out where they fall. This one, by doing that, fell in a 4-star, but I kind of think it might be a 3-star. So I'm not sure right now. If you look online, it's a 4-star. I might move that down to a 3-star because I don't know what to think of it. I will have a better idea after my book club discussion. I did like the writing, and I would definitely be interested in reading more by Elif Shafak because I did really like her writing. The book it's a original, unique book, and I really liked that. a great sense of place. It's set in mostly in Istanbul. So that has a lot going for it. It's just, I don't know how this book landed with me. So there's that. And the third book I finished, which is my print book, so I can hold it up, I buddy read this with Michelle at Michelle and Reads. I have given her my final thoughts, but she hasn't given me, I think she's just finishing it today, or maybe she's left me her final thoughts and I haven't heard them yet. But whatever. It is Jane Seymour, The Haunted Queen, in the 6 Tudor Queen series. 2 months ago, I read Catherine of Aragon. Last month, I read Anne Boleyn, and then went down a rabbit hole. So this month was Jane Seymour. And I will say now, I had plans to do Anne of Cleves or Anne of Clèves next month. I'm actually going to put that to September only because I have some other big books I want to get to. And August might be a little crazy month. So I'm just pushing that to September. But so Jane Seymour, I'm going to try to talk about this without going down a rabbit hole, but I make no promises. Henry VIII's third wife. She is the died of divorced, beheaded, died, divorced, beheaded, survived. And I will be honest, historically, if I look at it as a history person, she is the least interesting queen to me. She is. She's not that interesting. But as a novel, so this is really, as a novel, Alison Weir did a good job of making her interesting, or at least making her story interesting. If you watched when I did Anne Boleyn, I had frustration because, and it's not completely fair to put this on Alison Weir because Anne Boleyn is a difficult character. And she's an enigma. She is just a difficult character based on who she is, because I know a lot of people have romanticized her. She's this tragic character. I don't think she's tragic at all, because yes, she was innocent of the crimes for which she was executed, but she played the game. She played the game and she lost. And to me, that's not a tragic story. She lost. She played the game. The Game of, not that I've ever watched or read Game of Thrones, but she played the Game of Thrones. I'm assuming it's kind of like that. I don't know. So there was this weird, and I said, it's just a difficult character. I think Alison Weir did the best she could have. I did kind of feel like it was a rough character. Here, she does a really good job. And I think Jane Seymour is a little bit difficult too, because coming after Anne Boleyn, she's kind of a blank slate. So Jane Seymour is clearly a Seymour. And as I was telling Michelle, you have to follow the Seymour and the Howard families because they become very important. She was a lady in waiting. We first meet her in the Catherine of Aragon book because she was a lady in waiting, or she was a maid of honor, which there's a difference, to Catherine of Aragon. And then her father pulled her out and put her in the service of Anne Boleyn, which she was not happy about because she was very loyal to Catherine of Aragon. We also are here in the height of the English Reformation and the dissolution of the monasteries. And you're starting to see a division among people of being the old faith or the new faith. So Catholic versus what became Anglican. She's of the old faith because she's very much in the Catherine of Aragon mold. And so she is a lady in waiting, or maid to Anne Boleyn when all that happens. Y'all know. And somewhere in that, Henry VIII takes a liking to her. Things happen. They get betrothed, shortly after Anne Boleyn gets, and they're married shortly after that. Alison Weir makes an argument that she was pregnant at the time of her wedding and suffered miscarriages a couple times. And she says, I actually made sure to read the author's note on this because I had never heard that before. And I did do preliminary research, i.e. I went to Wikipedia to see, did I totally miss this in school? There is a non-contemporary account. So someone later who said, after her death, probably, I think he was 18th century, said that this was the case. So I don't know how well you can take it. Personally, I believe the MacLeod syndrome theory with Henry VIII, which would make it very unlikely that she had miscarriages before she had her son. Okay, just put that out there too. But we don't know. As Alison Weir says, you have to just accept that that was a possibility. Okay, I can accept that was a possibility, although I really doubt it. So what makes this story so interesting is you have a character or a person, historical figure, who is really just not that interesting, although she comes from an interesting family. And her brothers, Edward and Thomas, actually, beyond her lifetime, play important roles. So there's interest there. And Alison Weir does a good job of bringing some of the court characters to life. There are a lot. Michelle was saying a couple times she got confused as to who was who. And I told her, you don't really have to follow it that much. I mean, there's a couple key characters in like Cromwell is in Cranmer. And I said, pay attention to Howards and Seymours. But she does getting, the periphery characters, she does a really good job with. But what was really interesting is Alison Weir creates this storyline that I thought worked really well. Although I will warn you, it sounds a little hokey when I tell you. And that is, she is haunted by Anne Boleyn. It's done really well in the book, and I think it really highlighted some things with Jane Seymour about the guilt she felt over a role that she might have played in Anne Boleyn's downfall. We don't know how she felt. We don't, but I thought one of my arguments, or one of my frustrations with more with the Anne Boleyn book than the Catherine of Aragon book, but really with both, is that Alison Weir stayed way too close. Like, she was so tied to the history. And she didn't allow herself to kind of step away from it a little bit. And she does here. And I think that makes this a much better book. Jane Seymour she makes her an interesting character. Not that she's ever going to be an impactful character like Anne Boleyn was in history. Anne Boleyn is a very impactful historical figure. But she is the impactful historical figure. But as far as a novel, she makes Jane Seymour very interesting. She gives Henry VIII a bit of a pass in this book, though. There's always this question, what did Henry VIII really feel about his wives? And I will go through the first three, because I think that Alison Weir was pretty good with the first two, and then she kind of slid a little bit on this one. I think that Henry VIII had a genuine affection for Catherine of Aragon. Even when, at the end, when things went bad, I think there was always this sort of inner battle with him, with how he was treating Catherine of Aragon and how Anne Boleyn was treating her. But I think for a long time, he had genuine affection for her. Was he faithful? Hell no. He was not faithful at all. And then you get Anne Boleyn, and the subtitle of the Anne Boleyn book is A King's Obsession, which I think is appropriate. I think that was very much the case. It was like he was hot to trot, and there was something of a magnetic quality about her. I don't think there was genuine love between them. I don't. I think it was in his pants. Mm-hmm. But here we get to Jane Seymour, and the question is, how did he really feel about Jane Seymour? She does die after giving birth. I'm not spoiling anything. That's a historical fact. So we don't know. What would have happened had she not given birth to a son? What would have happened had she given birth to a daughter? We don't know, because she died. How did Henry VIII really feel about her? And Alison Weir and a number of historians make the argument that much of the appeal about Jane Seymour is that she was a polar opposite of Anne Boleyn, and I think that's probably true. I do think he had some genuine affection for her, maybe not to the point that he had for Catherine of Aragon, partly because she was a correction. She also very much modeled herself after Catherine of Aragon. She was loyal to her. She was loyal to Lady Mary in this book, because she's been bastardized. But I think just historically, he had affection for her. She hadn't done anything really to lose that affection at that point, because it's really what happens. He'll have affection for him, and then he loses the affection. He, however, was not faithful to her. I'm just talking historically here. He was not faithful to her at all. We know that. We know he wasn't. However, he is in this book, and I kind of felt like that would have been an interesting element to add in, was his infidelity, because he was unfaithful to her during her pregnancy, because you believe in, doing the deed while they're pregnant, because that was supposedly dangerous. So he would just do the deed with other people. But her dealing with that idea, but also the fact that she might have been the object of that same sort of action herself with Anne Boleyn, that would have been a really interesting element to introduce. And Alison Weir didn't go there, and I was a little frustrated with that, but she did. I mean, I was impressed with the haunting storyline. I found that really interesting to read, and I think well done. One thing I have noticed about Alison Weir is she writes a good death scene. I mean, and they're not huge. I mean, this one is probably more drawn out than the previous two death scenes. We kind of know what Catherine of Aragon died of, although she keeps insinuating that Catherine of Aragon was poisoned, and that might have been a belief at the time, but that's pretty much accepted now. She had cancer of the heart, because they said, well, there's a black thing growing on her heart, so that must have been poison, or a tumor. It could have been a tumor. That's a lot more likely. And there's no mystery on how Anne Boleyn died. There's no mystery. We know. But here there is a little bit of a mystery on how Jane Seymour died. She died complications after childbirth is a catch-all way of describing it, which is not inaccurate. Now, some people said she had a puerperal fever. Some people said she had sepsis. And what Weir does in this book, which she explains in the author's note, and I appreciated that, is her theory is that actually two things happened. This might be slightly spoilery. I'm going to put spoiled down here. Just if someone would not consider this a spoiler at all, because it's history and I know what happened. But if anyone is, I'm just going to put spoiler down here. So skip ahead till the spoiler goes away. She says two things happened. One, that she had, and she's looking at the symptoms that were recorded in the 9, I think it's 9 days from the time Edward was born until Jane Seymour died. That she got sick, and then she got better, and then she got sick in a different way. Her argument is that Jane Seymour may have gotten food poisoning, which is just even today horrible. Like, I think most of us have had food poisoning now. It's bad. She recovered for that, but you're still weak, and it does stress the body quite a bit. And then she had an embolism, because she talks about not being able to breathe. So it would have been a pulmonary embolism, and it affected her heart. And because she was already weakened from the food poisoning, which she had recovered from, in that she was not sitting on the little chamber pot all the time, she was already weak, and then she succumbed to that. We don't know. There's always a danger in diagnosing people from the past in history, but I felt like she did her due diligence there, and that's a very viable explanation for what happened. So I appreciated that. Okay, end of spoiler. I'm not going to go any further, because I'm going to go down the Tudor rabbit hole again. I cannot guarantee there will not be more Tudor rabbit holes this month, because I am still reading Hunting the Falcon, which is nonfiction. It's Hunting the Falcon, Henry VIII, Anne Boleyn, and the marriage that changed Europe, or something like that. I'm still reading that, so there will be another rabbit hole coming back to Anne Boleyn, because again, that's the most interesting rabbit hole. And at some point, I think at some point I will give you my 6 rating. So the musical 6, if you haven't seen it, it's like the 6 queens kind of like have this little contest to see whose life was most tragic. And then, anyway, whatever. They don't ever tell you. It's for you to decide. I have decided, and my take is spicy. So maybe when I finish this series, because the books themselves are not changing my view on my ranking, because I already have the ranking from history, but to be as a kind of conclusion of when I finally read this book, which will be in November. If I'm skipping August, but if I do September, October, November, I'll be done in November. I'll give you my 6 ranking. So anyway, okay, that's it. I've talked for almost half an hour, and I'm sorry. I told you there's going to be rabbit holes when it comes to Tudors, or any kind of little pocket of history that interests me. And I am I have these new shirts, and I meant to wear one today and I didn't, but I have one that said history buff, I'd like you better if you were dead. And then I have this other one. Let me see if I can get it here. Hold it up. Here. This is the one I meant to wear and I totally forgot. And if you can't see that, it says history. It reminds you that people have been this stupid for thousands of years. All true. But I go down rabbit holes. So anyway, I'm going to stop now. If you made it this far and you'd like to do the emoji thing, you don't have to. But if you want to leave a comment, you don't know what to say, you can do emoji. If you just want to, whatever, leave an emoji. Leave me an emoji of, let's see, what can I do that's kind of related to the books? And I don't want to do a tutor one. So we're going to think about The Sitters All Out or two. Leave me an emoji of a murder weapon. Your choice. Whatever murder weapon you want. Okay. Like, subscribe, join my Discord. Thank you very much for spending time with me, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.